What is up, guys? Randomodium here. This is your Week 6 Fantasy LCS analysis and prediction video. In this video, I'm going to break down all of the matchups for NA and EU LCS. I will be discussing the results from previous weeks, so if you don't want those results spoiled, this is your spoiler warning. But basically, the TLDR that I have for you guys is this is the tier list for Week 6, and you're going to notice that on this tier list, there's a lot of new faces that are popping up in kind of the upper half of the bracket, and that has a lot to do with the shakeup that happened in Week 5. There were a lot of upsets that happened in Week 5, a lot of teams that were not contenders before are now showing some life, and some teams that were vying for those top spots seem like they've dropped off the face of a mountain. So that's kind of why you see this massive change in the tier list this week. In general, players that are G2, Echo Fox, and Cloud9 are near the top. I think those are the teams that are performing the best right now, both from fantasy points and also from how many games they win. But then right beneath them, you're starting to see a lot of very strange picks come into the mix. You're looking at some Golden Guardians players. You're looking at Unicorns of Love players. You're looking at Optic players, Clutch players. There's a lot of players that you wouldn't necessarily think would be top tier picks that are kind of coming into play right now. So I'm going to go into a lot more detail as to why those players are better picks this week, but you'll have to stick around to get all of the juicy details on that. In the kind of the middle range, we've got a lot of players that are, kind of the teams that are kind of 1-1. You've got TSM players, Misfits players. You're starting to see H2K players move up based off of their roster changes. Unicorns of Love players is a team that I forgot that has been doing very well as far as fantasy points is concerned when you compare that to how many wins they get. So, for example, if they only win one of their matches, they get more points on average than other teams that only win one of their games in a given week. You see a lot of other people. Fnatic is kind of in that middle of the pack kind of area. So you can see that there's a lot of teams that go 1-1 that are kind of in that middle of the pack, that kind of green area. And then the teams that are most likely going to go 0-2 this week are kind of in the blues and the purples. And those are the people that you want to try and avoid. So I'm going to go into more detail as to why I've got certain people where they are. And the first step to understanding that is to look at the matchups for the week and understanding who I think is going to win, who's going to lose each match. So this is one of kind of the weakest points of my analysis right now, is that a lot of what my predictions are based off of who I think is going to win for a given week. I'm not 100%. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but you have to account for wins and losses. And a lot of the other methods that I've seen for people where they try to predict fantasy points, they don't take into account wins and losses or predictions, and a lot of times that causes them to miss on some really big issues. Like, for example, a lot of people didn't predict the Team Liquid issues with Week 4. Obviously, I had an issue with Week 5 with the G2 where I said G2 I thought was going to lose both of their matches, and I was wrong. They actually won both of their matches, but you have to take into account wins. The only way that you can have an accurate system, I think, is you have to take into account wins to account for those anomalies that you're going to see. So it's not a perfect system. I'm working on a better way to do it, but that's what it is, what I've got right now. So for TSM, they're kind of struggling a little bit right now. They're going up against Echo Fox and Optic this week. I do think they should be able to beat Optic. I think they're going to struggle against Echo Fox. Predicted to go 1-1 this week. CLG going up against Clutch and Guardians. I think they're going to lose both of those matches. I think they've got a slightly better chance against Guardians than Clutch. Cloud9 is going up against 100 Thieves and Clutch. I think that they've got a good chance to win both of those games. I think if anyone was going to upset them, it probably would be Clutch. Team Liquid's going up against FlyQuest and Echo Fox. I think that Team Liquid will lose to Echo Fox. It looks like Team Liquid is struggling a little bit, but I do think that they have the ability to beat FlyQuest. 100 Thieves going up against Cloud9 and FlyQuest. I think they're going to lose both of those matchups, but they do have a shot in both of them. More of a shot against FlyQuest. Optic going up against Guardians and TSM. Optic beat Guardians, so I do have to give them the slight edge. I give TSM the slight edge against Optic, so I expect that Optic would probably go 1-1 this week. But that's definitely one of the teams that you want to keep your eye on, because if Optic is able to go 2-0 this week, obviously their point values will increase. The same can be said for Guardians. Guardians is going up against Optic and CLG. Both of those matches are matches that Golden Guardians can win. I do think that they're the slight favorite against CLG right now. I think they're at a slight disadvantage against Optic. But if Guardians wins both of their matches, they will probably be some of the highest point scorers for the week. So keep that in mind. Guardians puts up a lot of points when they win. That said, they don't win that often, which is why you don't normally hear about them. But if they at least win one of their matches, they should get very good fantasy points this week. And I think the chances are pretty high that they'll win one of those 2 matches this week. Echo Fox going up against TSM and Team Liquid. Not an easy week for them. I do think that Echo Fox can win both of those matches, though. And I do think that they'll continue on getting lots of fantasy points this week. Clutch going up against CLG and Cloud9. I think they'll be able to beat CLG. I think they're an underdog against Cloud9. Doesn't mean they can't upset them, but I do think that Cloud9 is the favorite. And then FlyQuest going against Team Liquid and 100 Thieves. I give them the slight advantage against 100 Thieves and a slight disadvantage against Team Liquid. Moving on to EU side, Fnatic going up against H2K and G2. This is going to be very interesting because H2K has come alive with their roster changes. I think that this is not going to be an easy win for Fnatic. I think this is going to be a pretty hard-fought match. H2K definitely has the potential to upset, though I do give Fnatic the slight edge up against G2. I think G2 look amazing in week 5. I think that they are kind of the undisputed #1 team in EU right now after that past week. So I do give G2 the slight advantage. That said, Fnatic could upset them. G2 going against Roccat and Fnatic. I think they should be able to stomp Roccat, and I think they will beat Fnatic, so it should be a good week for G2. Misfits going up against Schalke and Vitality. I give them the advantage against Schalke, but I think that Vitality will avenge their loss against Misfits and will be able to beat Misfits this week, which will most likely allow them to regain some of their standing after the disappointing week that they had in week 5. Splice going against Unicorns of Love and Schalke. I give Splice an advantage in both of these matchups. I think they're slightly better. That said, both of these matches will be very close, so Splice is a little bit of a higher risk this week. But if they do win, then they will put up some good fantasy points. Same can be said for Unicorns of Love. I give them a slight disadvantage against Splice. I give them a slight advantage against Roccat. Unicorns of Love is one of those teams that puts up a lot of fantasy points, especially when they win. If they win at least one of their matches, they should get very good fantasy points this week. If they win both of their matches, then they're going to be kind of in the similar boat as Golden Guardians, where they could be some of the top point scorers for the week if they wind up winning both of their matches. So keep that in mind. If you need to take a little bit more of a risk, Unicorns of Love or Golden Guardians might be a good place to place your bets, essentially. Schalke's been having a lot of difficulty lately. They're going against Misfits and Splice. I do give them a disadvantage in both of those matchups, so I would probably avoid Schalke this week. H2K looking much better. The roster changes made them look like a completely different team. They're going up against Fnatic and Giants. I give them an advantage against Giants, who has kind of fallen off of a cliff recently. I give them a slight disadvantage against Fnatic, but that does not mean that H2K cannot upset them. They were able to upset Vitality, so it's definitely possible for H2K to upset Fnatic. Vitality is going against Giants and Misfits. I do give them a slight advantage in both of these matches. I think that they have a better advantage against Giants. They should win at least one of their matches, but if they win 2, Vitality actually hasn't been putting up that many fantasy points, so even if they win 2 matches this week, you're not going to see them put up, like, top points for fantasy leagues. Giants looked amazing at the beginning of the split. Now the past 2 weeks, they have not looked very good at all. They're going against Vitality and H2K. I think H2K has momentum against them. I think that H2K has a slight advantage now against them. I think Vitality is a better team than Giants, so I think that Giants is not favored to win either of their matches. And then Roccat going up against G2 and Unicorns of Love. I don't see them winning either of those matches. I know Rockat's been struggling as well, so I probably try to avoid those Roccat players until you start seeing some better performance from them. So that kind of explains why players are going into the tier list that they are. But that's only half of the the equation that kind of goes into it. So part of it goes into it is the schedule, how many wins I think they're going to get, and the other part is player performance. So we're going to talk about the player performance that we have for people. So let's first talk about team points. So team points, you can see these are how many points each team scored for a given week. And this second column area is the value, how many points they should have gotten. So if you get more than 100%, then that means that you're getting more points than you should have based on how many wins you got. This is kind of their value score. And this is a factor that goes into my weighting for how many points they're going to get for a given week. For example, you can say TSM gets more points on average than they should. Who else? Optic. Optic gets more points than they should, 123% worth. Fnatic and G2 of scoring more points than they should. Unicorns of Love at 121%, getting more points than they should. The last two columns, the deviation and the risk, this kind of looks at how much are they deviating from a week-to-week standpoint. So, for example, we'll look at Unicorns of Love. They've got a deviation of 62%. And the reason for that is because they're all over the map. You know, week 5, 82%, week 4, 131%, week 3, 82%. So you can see they're fluctuating all over the place. That means that they have higher risk associated with them. But with that higher risk also comes higher reward, because there are times when they go, you know, as high as 225% of the points that they're supposed to get. And there are times when they go really bad. They get only like 80% of the points that they're supposed to get. So that's something you need to factor in, is how much risk are you willing to take to get that reward potentially. So that's why you can see like Unicorns of Love and Golden Guardians, for example. I'm saying, hey, these are some risky picks, but they could pay off this week. You can see that their risk values are very high, but if they win, they get a lot of points. They put up a lot of points on a given week. Moving on to top lane, you can see that top laners are doing well. Darshan, though I wouldn't probably pick them up because they've been struggling a lot. You're looking at Lorlo. Lorlo's putting up a lot of points, so I think that Lorlo is a potential sleeper pick this week, but he is high risk. Huni's putting up a lot of points, also high risk because he fluctuates all over the place. You can go anywhere from 200% on points to 80% on points. Other people that are kind of doing well, Wonder's been just doing outstanding. 131% on average for his value. You can see that he does have a little bit of fluctuations, going anywhere from 170 to 80% as far as points are concerned. And then for most of the people, looks like Smitty J is another one that's doing well. So for Smitty J, for a lot of the H2K players, because of the roster swaps, I did kind of ignore some of their performances in the midweeks, because I feel like they're now like a completely different team. So those numbers for H2K might be a little bit off. I wanted to boost them up a little bit to make them more representative for what I think they're going to have for the rest of the split, but you'll see those numbers adjust in the coming weeks. Jungle, Reignover actually doing pretty well on fantasy points from a value perspective, but he hasn't been putting up that many points in general. Contracts and Dardoch, so yet again, Golden Guardians and Echo Fox, kind of high risk, high reward. Cold from Unicorns of Love, Yanko's doing well. So you're seeing these trends, right? Is that your G2 is kind of your best bang for your buck, kind of, as far as, you know, very high points, but very consistent high points. And then you've got some more higher risk people in Unicorns of Love and Golden Guardians, and obviously Echo Fox they're all over the map, but in general they score above 100%. So they're pretty good. They're a very good pickup actually. Mid lane, same is true. So CLG on average, they score more points than they're supposed to, but they're not putting up, you know, huge amounts of fantasy points, and they're pretty high risk. Power of Evil from Optic. This is a new one. So Optic, Power of Evil, and you'll see Arrow is kind of similar to this, putting up lots of fantasy points and actually pretty low risk. So every week, looks like the lowest he's had is 91% as far as his value is concerned, but every other week he's been above 100%. So Power of Evil is a very good pickup. High also is a good pickup. He only had one bad week. The rest of his weeks have all been above 100%. Phoenix has also been doing well, 117% on average. Even Fevabin at 109 is doing well. Perks for G2, 119% on average. with pretty decent, spread. He's not super high risk. And then that looks like it's about it. Like, I know people talk a lot about Jizuki on Vitality, but he's definitely scoring less points than he should, considering how well Vitality has been doing. Bot lane, Stixay is doing okay, 106%. Arrow on Optic, so just like Power Evil, Arrow is doing really well. He's at 123%, and he's actually pretty low risk. He's scoring really well week in, week out. Altec from Echo Fox doing very well. Definitely not doing as well as some of the other Golden Guardians players. On the EU side, Hajarnan and Hansama doing very well. Samix from Unicorns of Love at 121%, but very high risk. He's just all over the map. He can go as low as 70% or as high as 200% from a value perspective. And then finally for support, we've got Biofrost, CLG yet again, not performing well as a team, not getting a huge amount of fantasy points, but the fantasy points they do get is higher value. So if you start seeing CLG start to pick it up and they start winning some matches, they're a good pickup in the for the last final weeks. They have a good schedule. Golden Guardians. So for Matt, Adrian from Echo Fox also doing well. Hakuo from Clutch also above average. On the EU side, Wadid and Mickey, obviously, and then Totoro from Unicorns of Love are kind of your people that are high value. So those are the players that you kind of want to look at when the teams have a reasonable schedule. Like if they're going to win at least one game that week, then that means that they're probably going to get good fantasy points when they have high point scores like this. So let's go to the risk reward tables that we have. So I showed you guys the tier list. So this is the tier list that only takes into account just average points based off of my predictions for who's going to win and who's going to lose. But we also have to talk about the risk side of things, risk and reward. I think that risk and reward is kind of a misnomer. Like I've said in previous weeks, I think variability is a better term. So you can see the vertical axis is average estimated points, and the horizontal axis is variability, meaning that people on the right could go high or low. So for example, like Unicorns of Love, if they win both their matches, they could be off the charts. They could be 45, 46 points. But if they lose both of their matches, they could be way down at 10 points. So that's something you have to keep in mind, is that there's a lot more variability for the teams that are over here on the right compared to the teams that are over here on the left. So you can see for like teams, Team Liquid, TSM, H2K, Fnatic, these are all kind of teams that are kind of more lower risk. So these are the teams that we expect they're probably going to win one game this week, and they're going to get kind of, average points. If you're looking for the more high-risk teams that are going to mostly going to get 2 wins, you're looking at Echo Fox, Cloud9, Vitality, Splice, Optic, Unicorns Love, Golden Guardians even. I think Golden Guardians I'm only predicting 1. I think Optic I'm only predicting 1. But they in general get more fantasy points than a lot of other teams. I think Unicorns Love is the same, which is why they're kind of high risk. But they have the potential to get a lot of fantasy points this week. Moving down to top lane. So you can see that there's quite a few people who are very low risk. You got Flame, Soaz, Zig, Impact, all considered to be very low risk, but not as high reward. I guess you would say they're kind of going to be average points, and the chance for them to score super high or super low is very low. They're most likely going to be around average points, and that's it. So if you need somebody who's safe, these are the people that you want to go for. If you want people that have the potential to really be those top point scorers this week, you're looking at like Wonder, Huni, Lorlo, Licorice, Alfari, those kind of players. Even like people like Smitty J are kind of creeping in there. And you can see kind of more people that are kind of around the middle, Haunter, Solo, Odo, White Knight, those kind of people. But in general, try to avoid the people who are near the bottom. And then depending on how much risk you want to take, you either want to lean more towards the people that are on the left if you want to go for a more safe option, if you want to go for those, that 3-point shot, those kind of, high risk, high reward players, then you want to go look for the people who are more on the right. All right, jungle. kind of a similar story, right? We got, FlyQuest, Fnatic, Optic, Team Liquid, all kind of more in the lower risk side of things. Higher risk side of things, we've got Yanko, Svenskeren, Contracts, Dardoch. Those kind of players are kind of all up there. So if you're looking for that high risk, high reward, those are the players you want to go for. If you're looking for more lower risk, lower reward, these are the type of players that you want to go to for this week. One person that actually kind of stood out was Cold. He's kind of medium variability, but pretty high points. So he's definitely a good pickup this week. Good value pickup. Mid lane. So you can see, for example, a really good pickup this week is Power of Evil, right? You can see that his point values are really, really high, but he has pretty low variability week to week. So he's a pretty safe pick who's going to get a lot of points, which is always advantageous. You can see a couple other people around here, Caps, Bjergsen, and Pobelter, Fly. They're all kind of lower risk, less variability if that's what you're looking for. And then for more people that are more higher variability, you're looking at Phoenix, High, Febin, Exile, even Perks, Jensen, those kind of people. They're kind of a little bit higher risk, but also higher reward. Bot lane. So bot lane, kind of similar. Arrow. Arrow kind of stands out here as being this kind of, rock of a player who gets good fantasy points week in, week out, no matter how his team is playing. So if Arrow is available, I think he's a good pickup this week. Double Lift, potentially, if you're looking for somebody who's more safe, but who's not necessarily going to, go crazy, either high or low on the points. He's pretty good. Kind of middle of the pack, you can see we've got this kind of trend where, the more points you want to get, the more risk you have to take a little bit. So Apollo, Wild Turtle, Reckles, Hansama, Hajarnen. Sheriff is popping up here based off of H2K's recent performances. Sneaky's around. Then you're looking more like the really high-risk people. You're looking at Altec, Samix, Deftly, Sven, Kabi, many Tropax. I'd probably avoid the people down here. I'd avoid the Stixays and the Cody Suns, the Steelbacks, those kind of people this week, just because it's just too high of a risk for not enough reward. And then finally for support, kind of a similar story. You can see Team Liquid, Optic kind of over here. Same with FlyQuest, Fnatic, Misfits. All these people are kind of more lower risk, but not as much reward. And then kind of the more higher risk people, Adrian, Matt, Smoothie, those kind of people. And then most of them are kind of in the middle, right? Wadid kind of stands out. He's kind of pretty high above this this line, kind of showing kind of what you would expect for the median. And then you can see like Totoro, he's also another one to pick up, potentially. Hakuo's around there. There's a couple of good pickups if you don't have a very good support this week. And I would probably avoid the people that are kind of near the bottom here. So that's pretty much it. That's the tier list for this week. There's a lot of things changing this week. So just keep in mind how much risk you want to take. If you feel like you have to take that risk, people who are like Golden Guardians, H2K, Unicorns of Love, those kind of people are potentially good pickups this week. If you're looking for more safer options that are maybe get less points, you're looking more like your TSMs, your Misfits, Fnatic, those kind of people. But the best people are probably going to be your G2s, your Echo Foxes, and your Cloud9s. So they're kind of like the cream of the crop picks if you have your choice. But yeah, hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. I am trying to find a way to better predict these point values, because I do understand that my system is very dependent upon me making accurate picks, which doesn't always happen. I try to be as accurate as possible, but sometimes I get it wrong. So I am looking for ways to kind of take myself out of the equation and be more objective. But it's kind of hard to do that, because when you try to make it less subjective and kind of try to play more towards the averages, then you start getting less of a realistic distribution in the point spread. I've tried to do it in the past and I've never been able to do it successfully. But yeah, we'll see if I can find some better way to kind of manipulate the numbers and try and figure out a way to better predict who's going to win and who's going to lose. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy the content on the channel, please subscribe if you haven't already. We do have a Discord, so please join our Discord if you can. I'll try to leave a link in the video description below. Thank you guys all for your support. I know that I haven't been putting out that many videos recently. I've been just working my ass off lately. So thank you guys for supporting me through all of this, and I'll try to put out more videos in the near future. But I hope you all have a fantastic day. I hope you guys all have a fantastic fantasy week. This is Randomonium signing off.